The old house loomed, a spectre against the stormy sky. Rain lashed down, mirroring the turmoil in John's heart. His grandmother, a recluse shrouded in whispers, was dead. Her house, a Victorian mansion at the edge of town, was his inheritance. It seemed less a gift, more a curse. John pushed open the creaking iron gate. The garden, once meticulously kept, was now a tangle of overgrown weeds and gnarled trees. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something vaguely unsettling. He shivered, pulling his coat tighter against the chill wind that seemed to whisper his name. He stepped onto the porch, its wooden floorboards groaning under his weight. The door, unlocked, creaked open as if inviting him in. He hesitated, a sense of foreboding gripping him. What secrets did this house hold, buried beneath years of silence and shadows? John took a deep breath and stepped inside, the door slamming shut behind him with a resounding boom. He was trapped, ensnared in the web of his grandmother's legacy, a legacy that felt more like a curse. Dust motes danced in the faint slivers of light that pierced the gloom. Cobwebs draped the furniture like macabre shrouds. The air was stale, thick with the silence of decades. John walked further into the house, each step echoing in the oppressive quiet. He ran a hand along a dusty table, his fingers tracing patterns in the grime. A grandfather clock stood in the corner, its pendulum frozen in time. The house felt frozen too, trapped in a time warp, haunted by unseen presences. As he explored, he noticed strange occurrences. A book tumbled off a shelf, landing at his feet with a soft thud. A floorboard creaked on the landing above, as if someone was watching his every move. A cold draught brushed past him, carrying the faint scent of decay and something else, something distinctly animalistic. John tried to rationalize the events, blaming them on his overactive imagination and the house settling, but deep down a primal fear gnawed at him. He wasn't alone. He could feel it in the shadows that seemed to writhe at the edge of his vision, in the whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. In the attic, amidst a treasure trove of forgotten memories, he found his grandmother's diary. Bound in faded leather, its pages brittle with age, it seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. He sat by the dusty attic window, the dim light painting the room in shades of grey, and began to read. Her words, penned in a spidery scrawl, painted a chilling picture. She wrote of strange occurrences, of whispers and shadows that haunted the house. She spoke of a presence, a darkness that whispered to her in the night, promising power in exchange for something she wouldn't or couldn't name. As he delved deeper into the diary, the entries became more frantic, more unhinged. She wrote of a creature, a monstrous entity that she had unwittingly unleashed. Fear permeated her words, a tangible terror that leaped from the pages and wrapped itself around John's heart. He slammed the diary shut, his heart hammering against his ribs. His grandmother's words confirmed his worst fears. The house was not just old, it was evil, harbouring a secret that was now free to roam. He had to leave, had to escape before it claimed him as it had claimed her. But he had nowhere else to go, and after all these could just be the ramblings of a decaying mind. So he stayed. Night fell, shrouding the house in an impenetrable darkness. John lay in his grandmother's old bed, the diary's words echoing in his mind. Sleep eluded him, chased away by the eerie creaks and groans of the house and the whispers that seemed to slither from the shadows. He could hear his grandmother's voice in the rustling of the wind, feel her presence in the cold spots that clung to him like icy fingers. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. Every creak of the floorboard, every sigh of the wind sounded like the creature's approach. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind, the house settling, his imagination working overtime. But deep down he knew the truth. The monster was real, and it was toying with him, drawing him deeper into its web of terror. Then he heard it, a low growl, guttural and menacing, emanating from the depths of the house. It was close, too close. Panic seized him, his breath catching in his throat. He was trapped, alone in the darkness with a creature born of nightmares. He scrambled out of bed, his heart pounding like a jackhammer. The darkness was absolute, suffocating. He fumbled for the light switch, but the bulb flickered and died, plunging him back into darkness. Stumbling through the house, guided only by the faint moonlight filtering through the grimy windows, shadows danced at the edge of his vision, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. He could feel eyes on him, watching his every move, cold and calculating. A cold draught swirled around him, carrying the same stench of decay as earlier, and something else, something metallic and sharp. Fear, primal and instinctive, propelled him forward. He had to get out, had to escape the suffocating darkness that pressed in on him from all sides. Then he saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows at the end of the hallway. Two glowing eyes, malevolent and hungry, fixed on him with terrifying intensity. The creature was real, and it was coming for him. He turned and ran, his breath rasping in his throat. Blindly he raced through the labyrinthine corridors, his terror growing with every step. The floorboards groaned under his weight, the walls seeming to close in, suffocating him. He could hear the creature behind him, its heavy footsteps pounding a terrifying rhythm against the silence. Its growls echoed through the house, each one closer than the last, a symphony of impending doom. He stumbled, his hand catching on a cobweb-covered railing. As he struggled to regain his footing, he saw it again. The creature stood at the end of the hallway, its silhouette framed by a sliver of moonlight. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a grotesque mockery of life, its eyes burning with an infernal fire, limbs seemingly everywhere, deformed, vile, and truly the stuff of nightmares. Panic surged through him, threatening to overwhelm him. He had to get away. He had to escape the monster's clutches. But there was nowhere left to run. He was trapped. He backed away, his eyes fixed on the creature that stalked towards him, its movements unnervingly fluid, almost boneless. He felt along the wall, searching for an escape, but there was nothing, only the cold, unforgiving stone. The creature advanced, its growls turning into a guttural snarl that seemed to vibrate in John's very bones. It moved with a confidence that spoke of its power, its dominance over this domain of darkness. John closed his eyes, bracing himself for the inevitable. He could feel the creature's hot, fetid breath on his face, smell the stench of 1,000 graveyards which clung to it like a shroud. He had nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. He was trapped at the mercy of the monster who stalked the pages of his grandmother's diary. As the creature lunged, John threw himself to the side, narrowly avoiding its attempt and slamming against the wall. He scrambled back, his hand closing around a heavy candlestick nearby. He brandished it in front of him, a meagre defence against the horror that confronted him. The creature hesitated, its eyes narrowed, seemingly wary of the flickering flame. John seized the moment, scrambling to his feet and backing away. He had a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. He had to get to the attic, to his grandmother's diary. Maybe, just maybe, it held the key to stopping the creature, to ending this nightmare. He just had to survive long enough to find out. With a surge of adrenaline, John turned and ran, the candlestick clutched tightly in his hand, his only weapon against the darkness that pursued him. He raced through the house, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for respite. But he couldn't stop, not now, not with the creature so close behind. He could hear its enraged roars echoing through the house, feel the floor vibrate with its every step. He burst into the attic, slamming the door shut behind him and fumbling for the lock. His fingers closed around the rusted metal, but it wouldn't budge. He rattled it frantically, but it was no use. The lock was jammed. He spun around, his back pressed against the door, the candlestick held out in front of him. He could hear the creature ramming against the door, each impact sending tremors through the room. The old wood creaked and groaned, threatening to give way. Despair washed over him, cold and suffocating. He was trapped, with no escape from the nightmare that clawed at the door, desperate for his blood. The door exploded inwards, splintering into 1,000 pieces. The creature stood framed in the doorway, its eyes blazing with malevolent glee. John brandished the candlestick, his heart pounding with uncontrollable fear, but he knew it was futile. There was nowhere left to run, no escape from his fate. The creature advanced, its claws outstretched, its shadow swallowing him whole. John closed his eyes, ready for what's to come next, the screams of his terror dying in his throat. The candlestick clattered to the floor as the creature grabbed John, digging its claws into his arms before unhinging and opening its mouth wide to reveal not only one but countless rows of razor-sharp teeth. In one motion the creature finished the deed. Darkness consumed him. Silence descended upon the house once more, heavy and absolute. The creature had claimed another victim, its hunger momentarily satiated. It melted back into the shadows, leaving behind an eerie stillness that was more terrifying than anything that could be imagined. Days later, the police discovered John's body. He lay sprawled on the attic floor, his eyes wide with terror, his face frozen in a fear that would give chills to the Reaper itself. His body was contorted at an unnatural angle, his bones broken, his flesh marked with deep, claw-like wounds. The official report declared it a tragic accident, a result of a possible break-in gone wrong. But the whispers started, spreading through the town like wildfire. They spoke of the old house on the hill, of the curse that haunted not only the structure, but the family that once resided within it. They spoke of the creature that lurked inside its walls, a creature that fed on the mind as much as the body and claimed the souls of those foolish enough to cross its path. And they spoke of John, the latest victim in a long line of those lost to the darkness that resided at this cursed address. The house stood silent, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at the town below. It was a place of whispers and shadows, of secrets buried deep within its ancient walls, and it waited patiently for its next victim, for the next unsuspecting soul to feast upon. The cycle continued, fueled by modern-day disbelief and plausible deniability, a chilling testament to why you should always, and above all else, fear the dark.